Welcome to Communicast, a communication skills podcast. I'm Scott D'Amico, president of Communispond. Today I am talking with Titus Bartolotta, who is the founder, president, and lead consultant for Collaborative Solutions Group, where he and his team work with leaders to bring transformational and measurable growth to their teams and companies. Check out the episode to hear Titus discuss the importance of single-mindedness, how being focused and present help drive outcomes, and why the present truly is a gift. I hope you enjoy. Titus, thank you so much for joining me today. And I'm really looking forward to our conversation. When we chatted a little while ago, I had shared we had met years ago when we were both doing completely different things. And I just remember from the limited interaction we had, two things. One, this guy is really good at his job. And the second one, part of that really was your communication, just so thorough with your communication, following up the questions that you asked to make sure that we accomplished what we were trying to do for our project. So with that, as I mentioned, really excited to have you here today. And if you can, to kick us off, just tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your background, and really what you're working on today.
Yeah, well, I can't answer that without first saying thank you so much, man. Those are super kind words. I'm so grateful that you would pause your day to even want me to be on the show, that you would say something friendly and nice to get us started, kind of get me all warm and fuzzy over here. So thank you for that, Scott. You are always the man, and I appreciate you. So my name is Titus Bartolotta, and I started my own personal development and professional growth firm called Collaborative Solutions Group officially about 6 years ago, and completed a certification through the John Maxwell program, and started to really lean into the gifts and skills and experience that I believed that my life and my God poured into me relative to coaching, training, mentoring. And so today I get the great privilege to not only be an entrepreneur and a business owner, but I get to work with entrepreneurs and business owners, leaders, people that, I like to call folks that are movers and shakers, man, people that are hiring and firing, building communities, and really transforming a community through the backbone of business, and finding a way to make commerce do more than just create profit, but create careers and grow and develop people. And so to be able to sit down with entrepreneurs and leaders and help them hone their leadership skills and their salesmanship and their effective communication and time management and so on and so forth is so rewarding. So rewarding. I'm so humbled when someone hires me to come speak at an event or to teach a workshop or to private coach them. I just go, my goodness. What I've come to know about most humans is they are resourceful, they are articulate, they are smart, they are caring, they are good people, they are good creatures by God. And so for them to have enough humility to say, I think I ought to get some help. I think I ought to just not go it alone and have someone come alongside of me to fight one's own pride and arrogance to say, what do you think I ought to do, is never lost on me in my job, and something I look forward to putting pants on every day to go do.
That's so cool just to hear somebody so passionate about what they do and just waking up every day full of gratitude to go out and help others, whether it's just personal development, helping them develop their business. Just so great to do. And it's always so fun. And I can speak from my experience as well, just waking up knowing that what you're doing is making a difference, helping people's personal lives, helping their professional lives, which oftentimes are very closely connected,
right.
But really just helping people get to that next level is just so cool to hear.
Yeah.
And with your role with the Collaborative Solutions Group and the coaching that you do and working, especially with a lot of small business owners, entrepreneurs, organizations, I'm sure you come into contact with a lot of folks that are great communicators, or that they're on the cusp and maybe they just need help, building whatever skill sets they may be lacking. But when you hear that term, great communicator, or somebody has strong communication skills, what comes to mind for you?
It's one of those things where, let me word it this way. If you've had a great meal, generally you'll go, oh man, I could really taste the rosemary or the garlic in this. It jumps out. There's an ingredient or two that really splits the atoms between all the things in the soup, and you go, I know somebody used leeks or onions or what have you in this dish. I don't know all the ingredients, but I know it's got at least this in it. And I would say for me, communication, effective communication is really, it's a dish, it's a meal with lots of ingredients. And I want to respect and honor all of them. And so I'll say a few that I think are most relevant in the great communicators I know. Now, you can look at great presidents, great CEOs, entrepreneurs, folks that just had a huge impact on the human experience. And really, it'll always be because of strong leadership skills and effective communication skills. It's always, they had those two things. Those are the defining things. But I would say people that are active listeners, right? Like when you are paying attention and you are dialed in and you're leaning in, it matters. It means a lot. It does a lot for you mentally. It does a lot for you and the person that you're speaking to. It actually encourages them to give you more information. It makes the person feel like this is worth pouring my heart into this guy or this gal. And so you, as a communication expert, you actually are gathering more data so that you're better prepared to speak. I think great communication experts, people that are just crushing it, are very clear in their message. There's not a lot of room for you to guess what they mean. You know, I've had folks tell me in the past that I might be a bit repetitious, but I have noticed that repetitious is a trait that is found in most great speakers. And really what it is clarity. I'm going to make sure that everyone in this room walks away knowing what the heck I meant. Now, I may have to reword it or use a second or third analogy, but the person in the back of the room who looks a bit confused halfway into my monologue, they also deserve to walk out of this room fully knowing what the heck we were talking about. And if that means some of you have to hear it a second or a third time or a second example and you already understood it the first time, if that means you guys have to be just a little more patient so that we all walk out together, I don't know a better definition of effective communication than to not just cross the finish line, but to bring everyone with me to the finish line. And so I would say being super clear, being repetitious, being an active listener are some of the garlic, onion powder, rosemary. So those are some of the ingredients that jump out of the bowl and right onto your tongue, in my opinion. Obviously, there's a lot of other ingredients. Those are some of my favorites.
I love the food analogy, right? That these are all these different ingredients. And when somebody has the right mix, they jump out. You taste it. You just, like you said, that's the rosemary, it's the garlic, whatever it may be. And like I said, you're killing me because we're coming up on lunchtime. I haven't ate yet. So if we hear my stomach going, it's because of the analogies that you're using. And a lot of key things that you mentioned there with around the active listening, being clear, being repetitive. And for me, this active listening, it comes up a lot. And I've noticed it a lot with my kids. And I've talked about a number of things that I do when I'm talking both at work or with my family. But something that I've been noticing a lot, especially with my youngest, is if she wants to show me something. A lot of times it might be just like a video on her phone or something that she did at school. She's checking in on me. Like she's like, if I'm like over her shoulder, like looking on the iPad, say, hey, Dad, check this out. And if I'm watching, she's checking back to make sure that I'm still locked in to her and I'm not checking my phone. I'm not daydreaming. So this idea of being locked in when you're in a conversation with somebody is so powerful, not only because, as you mentioned, the great information and intelligence that you're getting to help move forward with whatever the conversation or initiative may be, but also what it's signaling. This idea that you are important to me, that right now you are my main focus, which I think helps build up your credibility, which helps build up your trust, brings down barriers on the other side. So people will continue to open up and you can just make that dialogue and that relationship that much stronger. So no, I think spot on with the various ingredients that jump out. There's so many of them. Some people excel. And just like with a lot of things, when something becomes too strong, it can become a weakness. So somebody may over-index in one thing and it can somewhat be detrimental, just like if you're a chef and like me, you go all in on the garlic. It can sometimes overpower the dish, but no, I think that is great. Thank you for sharing that. And if you think of today's business environment, or especially maybe with small businesses, entrepreneurs, what are you seeing as maybe one or two key skills that are just really important for folks to have today when it comes to communication skills?
Yeah, I would say the two, and communication is one of these things where it bleeds into so many other soft skills. I mean, people that are great at time management are likely really just great at communication, and time management is a byproduct of their communication ability, meaning I understood I needed to manage my time and time block things. So I communicated effectively through a Google Calendar or what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And because of my communication, my written skills, I was able to perform. But I would say that when you're asking the specific question in communication, some of the skills that really seem to jump off to me are two things. One is to just be, and you kind of touched on it a moment ago, but to be present, to just be in the moment, right? I've noticed so many times that whether I'm speaking or someone is speaking to me, a moment ago, we were just talking about the importance of active listening, meaning when others are speaking, I'm present, I'm here. But even when I'm talking, I mean, there are times where speakers and communicators drift in the middle of their own conversation. I mean, they're actually the ones speaking, and they've mailed it in, so to speak, right? I mean, I've already said this 1,000 times. I don't need to be sharp right now. I don't need to hit the tone or hit the pauses. I don't need to lean into the emotional connection and engagement in my conversation because they've heard it, I've said it. This is not that big of a deal. And so people leave being in the moment. I'm convinced, Scott, that there's a reason, you've got the future and you've got the past. I'm convinced that the reason we call this moment the present is because if you can find a way to be in the present, it's a gift, right? It is a gift. And I think that's why we call it that. I think it is not easy. It shouldn't be ignored. Being present in the moment in which that you're delivering or that you're receiving information has got to be one of the top ones. And if I could give you a second one, I would say it's this. I don't think that I can think of too many things in life where somebody talked about 10 different things they wanted to accomplish. And through the art of multitasking, talking about all 10 things, they were able to accomplish it. We see this in politics often when they try to put too many things into a bill and then it doesn't pass. I think this is true in communication. What's really moved the needle in human experience is not one's ability to multitask. Even in our communication and our speech, we can multitask. We can talk about too many topics at one time.
Mm-hmm.
We could try to build false bridges between them so it looks like they're all connected, but some of them are a stretch and you shouldn't have even brought it up. What I do know to be true, Scott, is that the most dynamic communicators that actually saw the end in mind, meaning the result and the outcome from them talking was fruitful, wasn't because they were scattered and multitasking in their communication, but they were single-minded. I'm going to be clear in my message, and I'm not going to try to build a bridge or stretch to some other secondary thing. I am staying focused on my primary single-minded point of conversation. And when I'm done, we will have moved the needle and there will be an outcome that was worth that investment. I think those are the two skills that communicators, when they crush those, they win the room and they win the minds and hearts of those they talk to.
And I would say that there's probably a very strong connection between being present and that idea of single-mindedness, right? Because when you have so many things you're trying to accomplish, that's when you can drift. That's where you're going to forget about something. You're going to lose the audience because you're thinking, wait, we were just talking about this. Now we're talking about this. What happened to the other thing? So this idea of single-mindedness, and we see this a lot in email communication, is that you get so much just dumped into an email and everyone's like, okay, I'm just writing it down. I'm going to put it all out here. They're going to get it. And then what happens? You read a few lines of it. You see no point to what's going on. You see no end in sight. You're scrolling through it and you just give up on reading. So I think this idea of being really focused and intentional with the communication is important, and being present, that is so powerful. And once again, similar to the active listening, it goes back to also what message are you sending? And I've had this before, early on in my career when I was a sales leader, where we would do big team meetings in person, get people together. Our boss would fly in, with a territory director, a regional VP would fly in. The reps are presenting, I'm presenting, doing things, and the leaders in the back on their computer the entire time. And so
Mm,
they weren't necessarily directly communicating. They weren't in front of the room communicating, but they were definitely communicating a message to that team,
yeah,
to that group
that's good.
around their importance, their value, where do they stack up, to the point where I've had to talk to some of them and say, listen, when you're in town, I understand you probably have a lot going on, but during these times, I would really love it if you could be active and engaged with the team, just because they value your input, they value your perspective, and they really want to be able to learn from you while you're here. So I agree. Those two things, the idea, be present, be singularly focused, will really help drive the communication forward. And I think, as you mentioned, win the hearts and minds of the audience. That is great. So Titus, as you think about your career journey prior to the Collaborative Solutions Group, a very successful sales career, and just a number of things beyond that, if you could point to, say, one skill that you've had around communications that has helped you to get to the point where you are today, what would you say that one key skill has been?
Passion, right? I think that I can't think of too many things that I speak about that I lack passion in. I've just made a commitment to not talk about it unless I'm going to speak passionately about it. So I'm often very passionate about everything. Now, there was a time in my life that I was told to talk about things, right? In sales, I would like for you to sell these products, these services. And so the subject matter in which I speak on might be something that others ask me to talk about. And this is not really too far removed from today in my career, although the menu, so to speak, of what you can get me to talk about, I have now selected, right? Versus my boss. But now the subject matters that I speak on are a menu, a list of things I want to talk about. You can pick whichever one you want. But I am totally sold out to the subject matter, to the product, to the service, to the people, to the agenda, to the vision. I'm just not going to speak and not have passion. And it's not a false passion. I don't want them to think I'm passionate.
Right.
I literally spend time before any opportunity to speak, and I get passionate about the subject matter. It's part of my ritual. It's part of my practice. It's part of my go to life plan, that if I'm going to talk about this thing, I want to be passionate about it, more even so than I want to know about it.
Yeah.
And that may sound foolish, but if I could add some clarity, I think we ought to know that which we talk about. But I would rather know 10% of the subject matter and be 100% passionate about it. Like when I watch people know 100% about something, but they have 10% passion, I don't even care to hear them talk about it. So like none of us get to know all of your beautiful knowledge and wisdom, because I can't get past the first 4 minutes because you seem miserable talking about the thing. And so if I'm going to talk, even in a conversation where you think, well, Titus, how could you prep? How could you prepare and build your passion before you speak when you're in the midst of a conversation with someone? Well, what I've chosen to do is when I engage in a conversation, I get passionate about the person, and I remind myself how much they matter. And I remind myself how much what they have to say to me is important. I remind myself about how this is their chance to be heard, and that all humans are really only trying to be heard, understood, and loved. And I get a chance to check all three of those boxes for another human being. All I have to do is deeply care. I just have to love them. That doesn't cost me anything. I just have to hear them and let them be heard. It doesn't cost me anything. But if I do those two, then I get to understand them. And I'm telling you, if you want to build a connection with another human being, have that person walk away from you feeling understood. It's a game changer. And if you lack passion, that person will not feel understood. And I just won't waste the minutes God's given me or the words that I respect so deeply, because I'm in love with words. I just won't devalue them by not wrapping them in passion, because they deserve it. And so do the people I speak to.
Yeah, you can definitely tell when you talk with somebody that has that true passion for what they do versus you say kind of the false passion. They're putting it on because they feel that they need to get a sale, whatever it may be.
Sure.
But as I think about, a lot of folks out there may not be as fortunate as, say, you or I to be in a role where you're just truly passionate about what we do, who we serve, the solutions that we have. But I would say if you think about what you're doing, there's probably somewhere along that line of interactions where there's something you're passionate about. You may be selling widgets or whatever it may be. But if you think about the person that you're selling to, what are you doing to help them in their career? What does your widget go into that may be part of a medical equipment that helps to save lives? So if you really step back and think about what you're doing, I think people can start to find passion around what they do. Once again, may not be directly in their product. It may simply be in helping someone else be successful in their role, because their solution is going to help them be successful in their career, or to help develop other people and their output. So I think really kind of stepping back, if you feel like, I'm not excited about what I do, I'm a data scientist, maybe I crunch numbers all day. Okay, on the back end, what are those numbers feeding into? What is that helping your organization? Where's this information going? So I think taking kind of more of a bigger, broader look at the kind of the whole ecosystem that you're in can help some people find that passion until they can get to that true part where that, yes, this is something that everything about it, I'm just 100% bought into.
Well, and if I could, Scott, let me say this. I deal with a lot of folks that say, Titus, I hate my job. Man, I don't find joy in it. I'm not passionate about it. It's not my purpose. It's not what I was called to do. And so then I ask them, as motivational and as positive and optimistic as I am, and that is really my DNA, I'm also very pragmatic. I'm very direct, right? And people pay me to provide them with critical thinking and solutions and direction, not just pie in the sky. I think I can, even though there's value in that stuff. Right. And so I say this to people when they go, gosh, I'm just not passionate. I'm not in my purpose. I ask questions like, does what you're doing, the thing that you're communicating about, the task that you have, the job you work in, does this currently pay your bills? In many cases, they say, well, yes, of course. Does it provide for your family? Well, yes, of course. I go, great. It is possible for your livelihood to coexist with your purpose in life. You might find ways inside the job to tap into the passion, like kind of what you just said, Scott, or perhaps you find ways to be passionate outside of that through charity or giving or church or whatever moves the needle in your heart. And that passion, that fuel source, that's all passion is. It's gasoline. You can use that in the tank with the thing that you may be lacking passion in. What you got to do is just get your balloon filled up, right? And if the thing you're doing deflates your balloon, you got to start with a full balloon. You can't have a half already deflated balloon when you go into the thing that doesn't instantly, organically bring you passion. You will find that energy will get you through the moment. And eventually you'll start realizing, I can be passionate about this thing. Right? If I'm not breaking laws of being, dishonest and lacking morals and ethics, if I'm not doing that, I probably can find passion in all the things. Because when I was 6 years old, I used to be passionate about everything. When I was in kindergarten, I used to be passionate about everything. It is possible to be passionate about the thing that you're currently not passionate about. If you would just flex and stretch the passion muscles, and before you'd realize it, you go, my goodness, look at your small kids if you have them and go, how does my kindergartner have so much passion about everything? And why would Jesus say, let the young kids, let them come? They got something to say. So it's just a muscle. It's a skill set, Scott. All you got to do is work on your passion skill set, and then you can apply it in areas where right now you don't feel like you have passion, instead of running away from, oh, this isn't my thing, go do something else. We all know those people, Scott, they've got 10 half-baked ideas. They just keep bouncing like a ping pong ball, seeking joy and happiness, when in reality, they can pour passion into what they're doing today, right now.
And I think closely tied to that concept is this idea of gratitude. You hit on it, right? Does what I'm doing today, is it paying my bills? Is it putting the roof over my head? Is it providing food for me and my family? Shifting that mindset to focus on less on maybe what's wrong, what I don't enjoy, what are the good things, what are the positive things? And as you mentioned, kind of searching beyond, whether it's finding something in that chain at work where I can be passionate about, or bringing something in from the outside, whether it is through charitable work, volunteering, hobbies, to really find that passion to get you fired up, to carry over into work, or eventually you'll start to see them at some point that sweet spot comes together. No,
Yeah.
love it. And I could see, just as you were talking about, your passion coming through, just getting very animated in your voice. It's so cool to hear. Titus, as you think throughout your career, who's someone that has influenced your communication style? Maybe what's something that you've taken from someone else and incorporated, made your own, kind of put your own little twist on it, but it's kind of become part of your communication DNA now, so to speak?
Man, that's a great question, Scott. I would say, John Maxwell is a brilliant communicator. And when I decided to get certified, most of the folks in our field in coaching, training, speaking, they don't really go train or they assume I was successful in my job. And so I have some experience, therefore I can coach and train people. And most of them don't get certified or go through some formal training. And I didn't want to do that. I was very successful. And I'd gone through some life experiences that were very motivational and some professional experiences that were very recognizable of success. But I still wanted to go study. I wanted, if I wanted to be a great leader, I knew I had to be a great student. And so I went and studied under John Maxwell. There's a lot of people I could have picked. I picked John. And if the listeners don't know, and John doesn't need my help to brand himself. He's a very wealthy, he doesn't need Titus to give him a shout out. But over the last 30 to 40 years, this man has written over 100 books. And that's, just stop right there. That's insanity. Right. That's absolutely the most crazy thing. And it's factual. But he has dominated leadership and personal growth and effective communication categories for nearly 4 decades. And so I have enjoyed his style. It's simplistic, it's direct, it's connective, it's engaging. He started off in church, and as a person of faith, I'm very connected to that. I love, many people will say that my speaking style is that of a preacher. There's a cadence there. There's a buildup similar to what you might hear from a church preacher that's fired up. And so John has those moments, but then always brings things back to the lesson, the stories. He's such a wonderful storyteller. I like to teach in storytelling, and I think through this interview already, with the examples of food and what have you, that's really what all I've been doing is trying to paint word art in people's minds. And so John does that at such a high level, excellent storyteller. So I would say John Maxwell has been in my lifetime who I've gleaned from the most. And as cliche as it may sound, it's hard to read the choice words of Jesus, and not go, man, that was pretty smart the way he worded that. It's pretty smart. When you read the red parts of the Bible, you go, what a smart way. When they said, are you supposed to give money? Are you give money to, God? They were trying to trip him up. And he goes, well, you give unto Caesar what is Caesar's and give unto God what is God. Just the way that he would take words and he would cut all the fat off of them. It was not too long-winded. It was not too short. So John and for me, Jesus just had such a direct, engaging, pithy storytelling style. And man, I just hope that someday somebody says, I remember everything that guy said because he told me in a story format and it was fun and informative. That's been my influences. If that's the question, that's my answer.
Those are some great influences to have. And storytelling is just so powerful. We hear about this a lot. We work with a lot of folks on that. We get a lot of requests about it because, as you mentioned, when somebody hears a story and they can make a connection to something else that's maybe not directly related to that topic is when it can kind of click. And I know a lot of the people at my organization and folks that follow me on social media are probably sick and tired of hearing about my kids. But for me, when I think of storytelling, a lot of the inspiration comes from them. The interactions that I have with them on a day-to-day basis. I see so many parallels to things in the work world, whether it's around communication or active listening or practicing or defining what good looks like. All these things I can take from my family and incorporate it. And I would challenge anyone out there that's looking to improve their storytelling skills is really to try and find an aspect of your life where you can draw that. It might be that you're a sports coach. It might be from your kids or your partner or spouse at home. It could be from any aspect of it, a hobby that you have. If you start really thinking about it, you're going to find these aha moments where you're like, you know what? There's a connection here between this and something at work. So no, I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Titus.
I'm so convinced that, I mean, science is clear on this, right? I mean, there's chemicals that get released in our minds, and there's a lot of stuff that goes behind why stories work. But when you go all the way back to cave drawings, Scott, it wasn't sentences, it was stories etched into a wall. People spend so much money on movie tickets because the story is good.
Yeah.
And in the same breath, if you're a bad storyteller, stop telling the story. Stop telling me about what fish you caught. Get good. Go get great. Don't practice on me, the audience. Go get great at your storytelling. Hire someone like Scott or their organization. Get great at it, and then go tell a great story. And you'll find that people say this. This is how you know you're telling a good story. When people say, and then what happened? But when no one's asking you that question, they are waiting with bated breath for you to get to the end of your story. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy.
Fantastic. So Titus, as we wrap up here, what would be one closing piece of advice that you have somebody maybe early on in their career that's thinking about their own communication skills, whether they're trying to advance, move into a new opportunity, go off on their own into entrepreneurship? Kind of closing thought piece of advice you may have someone in that scenario.
It's always so hard for me because there's like only 2 or 3 billion ways I would want to close this out. So to narrow it down is not easy. But Robert Fulghum wrote a book, Everything I Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten. It's a pretty awesome book. And so if I could just read like 2 seconds of kind of this book, here's what it says. For those of you that haven't read it, think about how, Scott's question was, how do we close out this interview? Like, what's the advice that people need to go to life and go to market? And so let me read this real quick. All I really need to know about how to live and what to do and how to be, I learned in kindergarten. Wisdom was not at the top of the graduate school mountain, but there in the sand pile at Sunday school. These are the things I learned. So check this out. Scott, this is how I'm going to answer your question. Here's what he says. In kindergarten, we learned this: share everything, play fair, don't hit people, put things back where you found them, clean up your own mess, don't take things that aren't yours, say sorry, say you're sorry when you hurt someone, wash your hands before you eat, flush. Warm cookies and cold milk are good for you. That is a fact, okay?
Yes.
Live a balanced life. Learn some and think some, and draw and paint and sing and dance and play and work every day some. Take a nap every afternoon. And when you go out into the world, watch out for traffic, hold hands, and stick together. I'm convinced that's the best way to go to life and market. I mean, we learned it in kindergarten. I'm just convinced that life is not about what new things should I be doing. It's probably more about how can I apply more pressure to my disciplines and be more consistent with the things I already know. The problem in life is easily found. Perhaps I drink. I'm an alcoholic. It's not hard to find out that that's the problem. The answer in life, people feel like they need to climb up to the top of a mountain and go on a 40-day fast. The answer to most problems are pretty easy, Scott. Like, stop drinking. Maybe I need to lose weight. Say no to cookies every now and again. The hardest part is applying the answer to the problem. It's application. Mm-hmm. We learned most of the things we ought to do in life and business. We probably need someone to be in our corner and on our side to help us stay the way. But the truth of the matter is we get stuck just not going the way. It's almost never that we don't know the way. So that's my advice.
That is a great way to wrap this up. Love all those recommendations. I think I learned pretty much all of those in kindergarten as well. And now it's time to go back, revisit, and start applying. And as you see those things start to take shape, I think that's where you're going to see the impact on your personal life, professional life, career outcomes, is really not only identifying what you may need to do, but actually applying those things to help you get there. So Titus, Thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate it. And I hope you have the great rest of your day.
You as well. Thank you, Scott.
A special thanks again to my guest, Titus Bartolotta. I took so much from this conversation, especially around passion, storytelling, and how to be more like my kindergarten self. If you haven't already done so, please be sure to subscribe to Communicast so that you can be notified of new episodes. Thanks, and have a great day.